Hello everybody. We have a game with the white pieces against Tristan, rated 864. We don't get a Ruy Lopez, we get an Alekhine's defense on the board, where we kick the knight around because he lets us. We put two pawns in the center with our e5 wedge pawn. He plays f6 to try to break down our structure. But I'm going to counter with c4 attacking the piece, which is a higher priority. I'll likely go to b6, which is the normal square. We're just going to develop and defend our center. He can take if he wants. Now he attacks it a second time, so that we can't take with the knight probably. But in this case, I'm going to take on f6 and leave him with a pawn on f6 regardless of how he captures. And that pawn kind of sticks out because a knight belongs there, not a pawn, weakening the light squares. He takes with the g pawn, which means he really should attempt to castle long, but I'm not sure that that's going to be something he can do. So he takes with the f pawn. Maybe he can break in the center, but I'm not convinced his king is safe there. So I really just want to develop another piece. And our position looks great. If he does break, we'll just take. Or we could just ignore him even. So he develops a knight to the rim. Not such an effective development scheme. Let's just develop a piece towards the center and prepare castling. And see how white responds. I mean, what is this, right? Is this supposed to be an opening? So he plays h5, which has to be more junk. You know, these can't be real moves here. These knights over here, these pawns here, and I mean, what is this, right? So the drawback of moving this pawn is it undefends this square. So we immediately harass the king so it can never castle. And it has to block some of his pieces. And now we can continue with our development after he moves his king. He shouldn't waste any time. We did move the bishop, which undefends this. So we're going to develop, defend, and look at the light squares. So now when I give him this check, before he had e6, but with my queen here, he does not have e6. So he attacks the bishop. We can attack the rook and then stick a piece in here. That's probably strongest. We don't really want to take the pawn when we have an option like this, forcing the rook to move. And then we squeeze the queen in, meaning the king has to go further out into the open. And then we could just checkmate it with, you know, nonchalant moves. So he moves the rook and takes a pawn, totally missing the thread. And we just give him this check, forcing him out into the open. And then we go check. If he decides to move his king, that has to lead to something bad. And if he sacks the knight, that has to lead to something bad. What other checks do we have? These are no good. This, he can take this way. Okay, so let's throw in this check. Our queen's hanging. We are keeping that in mind. He does sack the knight, but now when I take with the queen, if he goes here, this is checkmate. If he goes here, I mean, I can repeat the position. This sends him back. If we take with the pawn, and he goes to this dark square, we have a check. He has a knight block. I'm going to take with the queen. We can always go back and figure something out after he goes here. Let's give him the chance to get mated in one. And if he goes back here, we have options. I mean, we're up a piece. We can continue with checks. There's this check, there's this check. Now our queen's not hanging, so we don't necessarily even need to give a check. You can bring in another piece, let's say. Knight here, which covers these squares so that queen here is a checkmate. Something like that. It's probably more effective than bringing the bishop in. I don't really see the bishop doing much. So let's bring in the knight, and now we have 3 different pieces hitting the light squares, and his one light square defender just can't reach them, and so black is toast. Okay, so he makes a little bit of breathing room for the king, so now it's not checkmate. That's fair. He also attacks the queen. But we definitely have good checks here. We don't want to give this one, because even if he goes back, we have to repeat. Okay, first things first, the rook is hanged, but we're not looking for the rooks. We're trying to figure out the king situation. If I go here, I mean, this doesn't help. I mean, I just want to sack stuff and go for mate. Is that wrong of me? I don't see the exact mate though, but so here check, or here check. Then he could just take. Hold on. Maybe I do just take the rook. Okay, I'll take the rook just because I have to move my queen anyway. And I can give this check next move, and it's the exact same situation. I mean, it's not like he can do anything. I don't see the exact mate. I wanted to get his king here and then check him with the knight, and when he takes, recapture with the second knight, and then if he goes in the open, bring in my bishop. But he could also go back in the cubby hole. I'm not sure it's mate, so whatever. I took his rook, even though I didn't want to. c5 hits the knight in the center, but only weakens the light squares, doesn't help his position, and gives me this square for free now. So all things that are bad for him. Now, if my queen was here, that would be even stronger. Okay, whatever. Let me just put my knight here and take away this escape square. And then we'll see what happens. He moves his knight with some weird threats, but we'll just move our queen, defend, and attack. You can do whatever you want. You're up everything. His king is, you're up. It's +7, doesn't make a difference. +7, +10. Engine will probably say, let's see. We're up 6 points of material, and his king is terrible. His development terrible, so it's going to be higher than +6. We'll say +9, +10. Okay, so now he hangs his other rook, making it even worse. I mean, what's happening here? Why is there no checkmate? First, let's kick this knight because it's controlling some squares that maybe I want to use for my mate. If he goes here, it's mate in 1 because that's his escape square. If he goes here, that's check. Okay. He leaves it hanging. Hangs the bishop, hangs the rook, hangs the knight. This guy does not care about his pieces. Anything interposes, the knight can take, but he can't move his king, so he has no choice. He has to put his queen there and walk into checkmate. So, just terrible, terrible game by Tristan. And if you're rated below 1000 leeches, I don't understand how that's physically possible. How it's mentally and physically possible. So submit me your games so we can go through it. This guy wants a rematch. I don't think I've ever done this in the speedrun, but I'm going to give it to him. Yeah, we'll make it a 2-1 with the same guy, which I've never done. And we get a Pirc. Will he defend the pawn? No, he will not. However, he moves the c pawn trying to sneakily win a piece. This guy, he's not good at chess, but he knows the tricks. He's watched the YouTube video, and they told him about this. Now he knows. Now he knows. Okay, so instead of taking the pawn, I'm going to continue with the Pirc setup, even though there's tons of things you can play. Again, the pawn is still not available. So let's fianchetto. He threatens to take this pawn, but of course we're just going to castle, and that makes no sense, and it was a waste of time. Now our king is not here anymore to be checked. So we can kick the knight and take the pawn next, which is what I'm going to do if he doesn't stop me. He adds a third attacker to this diagonal, so in a way that stops me. But in a different way, I just play e6 and say these 3 pieces are all misplaced now. Your idea has been shut down, and I will kick your knight and take your pawn next. These pieces over here are going to be hit by this knight, but for the time being he launches the pawn up the board. I'm going to kick the knight, and now you might have seen in my speedrun where I leave the knight and recapture with the pawn, opening the rook, but that's when the queen can coordinate on the h file. His queen's on the wrong side of the board, so it's not going to coordinate with this rook. So you can't really sack the knight, and he doesn't. But when you move the knight, that hangs the central pawn, so we're going to take that. And this pawn was controlling these important squares. Now that it's not controlling d5, we can push d5, you know, with tempo, with great effect, controlling the center. So he hits our knight and opens up his bishop. Our knight can either go here or hit the queen. Hitting the queen's interesting, even though the knight's a little weird on that square. So let's go home, because it also has the g4 square, which could be nice. It also looks at h5, which is nice. It's just a good square. It's usually the best square for the knight anyway. We can always play d5 at any point, or develop our knight. I'm more keen on developing the knight unless the bishop's trapped. He played d3, which takes away that diagonal. So now if I go d5, he has to go here. Here, 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 bishop's trapped. Okay, so he moves his knight, which maybe threatens to take, but then king over and it accomplishes nothing. Terrible sacrifice. But he might be going for it nonetheless. Having said that, we're going to trap his bishop, yeah? So let's go for the bishop trap. I mean, this is a good move no matter what. We were going to play it anyway, whether the bishop is trapped or not, at some point. Now we just hit it. He has to go here. Or he could, I guess, he's going to have to sack at some point, so I guess he'll sack now. And he gets 2 pawns for a piece. But he can keep the bishop and give up the knight now that he put it here. So that's, I guess, one good thing about his knight move is that he can now give up a different minor piece, but at the end of the day, you're still down a piece. And our position is super solid. We have a great fianchetto, like a safe king. Oh, he doesn't even go for it. He just lets us take this way. But now we're on the queen, so he has to take back. This allows us to play c5, kicking away his centralized knight. This only leads to trades, which is good for us. He goes into our territory, but he's not coordinating. And so his knight is semi-trapped. Our rook is not protected, so it's technically not. But we can start with the pin. A6 can come after that. It's an awkward construction, aligning them like that. Now, how's he really going to get out of it? Because even if you move the queen to try to unpin and then move the knight, where does the knight really go? I guess you have a3. It's pretty terrible for white no matter what he does. This h4 move ended up being a waste of a tempo. Okay, he pushes a pawn, but I don't see how that... he can't take because that hangs the piece. It does defend the knight so that I can't, if I take with the piece, he can take his piece back. My rook is still not defended. So he moves the queen, which means my rook is not attacked. So now we can just take the knight. And then we can take this pawn. We are hanging this c5 pawn, but we're up 2 pieces, so who cares? He attacks our bishop, but his rook is attacked, is x-rayed, so it's not hanging. If you were to develop your knight, then he can get 2 pieces for the rook. You wouldn't want that. But you could develop a piece and let him take your bishop. We'll pre-move it because it's a safe pre-move. The only way it activates is if he takes our bishop. And our position is perfect, and white has absolutely nothing to poke and prod at. No counterplay. No squares in our position. Wait, what happened? Yeah, I moved my queen. He moves his knight and attacks this pawn, but blocks the queen. Anyway, I'm going to develop my last piece. He can take this now that his rook's defended. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. He moves his rook. I was going to let him take that piece, and then after he put his knight here, I thought it would be funny to play c4 and not let his knight back in the game. But, okay. He moves his rook. I mean, he's just toast. Jam, potatoes, jelly, toast. Where'd I get potatoes from? This is hit twice. He can't defend it a second time. Whatever. You could take either way. You're up 10 points of material. You can do whatever you want. And Tristan's going down a second game in a row. I doubt he'll offer a rematch after this one. He moves the queen. And we have infinite moves. Let's just continue on the light pawn chain and see what happens. He takes. Okay, we take. Attacking his queen. You would have so many, you could do whatever you want. Whatever move you were thinking about is a good move. Even if your move was king h7, excellent move. Okay, so now he goes here trying to attack the pawn, which is funny because the move I was kind of making fun of at the same time protects the pawn that he's attacking, funnily enough. But we don't even need to waste, you know, time with the king. We can just improve our pieces and defend, attack, get a lot more done than just a king move. We don't mind trading. I mean, we can just get our pieces in the game. We can get our rooks in the game. Give him some random checks on this diagonal. Move the bishop. It's crazy to keep playing. He moves his king, lining the bishop and whatnot. So this is a cool tactic where we give this check, but the only reason to give this check is to clearance the bishop to win the queen. And he had to take the knight because it was a royal fork. So it forces him to take, and then at best he can get a second minor piece for the queen. 2 pieces for the queen. But that's a clearance sacrifice. And it's cool because it attacks the queen as well. He counters our queen, but this comes with check, followed by more checks. And now maybe we don't have a dark square bishop, but maybe we can combine the queen and the light square bishop. So if we put the queen on dark and we use the other one on light, maybe he'll go to the c file. We'll get to throw a rook in there with tempo. Maybe we'll get to use the pawn at some point. So he goes that way. We'll throw in a random bishop check just to reposition it. Get it out of the way of the a file for the rook, which we can lift. And it's going to be checkmate in a few moves, but this guy's just stalling. He has to go to one of 2 terrible squares. And maybe we can box him in a little bit. Let's go here because this lets us bring a rook in for free, whereas this lets us checkmate him in 2. This lets us checkmate him in 1 though, instead of bringing the rook in, so that works. Either way, this guy was toast. Now you got to see me play the same person from both sides, and their play did not improve from game to game. And we just have a 97% all-zero game. Super easy. Play principled, play in the center. You know, it should be, you know, when you're making moves you shouldn't be making, you feel it. So trust your gut a little bit. Play simple chess and solid chess, and you'll climb. And if you're not 1,000, you'll get there. It's very easy, easier than you think. Good luck in your chess, and goodbye.